What's up everybody, this is Tattoo Bart and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we got a super exciting video once again. We're gonna review the Terminator by OG Produce. This is a machine I actually bought myself because I was really interested in the way that it looks. This is one of the other side mounted direct drive and stroke adjustable machines, just a little bit similar on the Defender tattoo machine that I did recently. If you haven't seen that video, I will put the link in the description down below so you can have a look at it. This machine is just a little bit different than the other one, but I wanted to test it out and see how it actually works, and I figured there were barely any reviews on this machine, so I would love to share this information with you and hope you find that interesting. Now, if you are willing or interested in buying any of these machines, I will have a coupon code for you in the description down below, so make sure you check that out as well if you are gonna buy this machine. Now let's actually unbox it and see how this machine actually looks and how it works. So here we go. So we have this very fancy box looking right here, and look how this thing opens. This is pretty cool. This is almost opening like a treasure chest or something. Got the OG Produce right here, and you can open it up. You can see right away we got some spare parts and tools. Some nice bubble plastic, and then right underneath we have the machine, and you can see it got a dial here with all the stroke adjustments, a nice little bar, and it also has like a needle tensioner to keep your needle into place so it doesn't bounce around, so you don't need rubber bands or something like that. It has a pretty good locking system. I think this is similar to what we have all seen on the Dan Cuban, and they start to actually use that kind of locking on almost every single machine that I've seen. It's pretty cool. RCA connector. It does have a cordless motor, which is at 11,800 RPM. You got a lot of adjustments here on the side. Let's move this out of the way actually. Let's see if we can get a good close-up. Now at first when I got this machine I thought, how do we actually adjust the stroke and how do I know what stroke it's at? Now you can see there's these little, I don't know if you can see it, there's one thing that stands out a little bit over here, and then there's another one over here, and one of them has like a black mark on them. In this case it's this one. I'm pretty sure you can see it on the camera. Now wherever that points at, that's where your stroke is at. So at the moment it's on 5 millimeters, and you can see right there it's 4.7, 4.3, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then it goes up again 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 3.8, 4.5, and then we're back at 5. So there's a lot of different adjustments that can be made. I personally have only used it on a 5 millimeter stroke so far. I did some lining and some dot work with it. You can actually see that video on my channel as well, so make sure you check that out, and I will also link it in the description. But yeah, we're just gonna have a look and see how these strokes are all working. I definitely want to test the 5, the 4, and the 3.5 because those are the most common strokes when it gets to tattooing. Maybe do a little bit of soft shading with 3. Maybe we should do that. But yeah, there's a lot of adjustments. I think it's always cool to do like a 5, a 4, and a 3.5, and then you can always see how it feels. I mean, if you think like, 5 is a little bit too much and 4 is a little bit too weak, you can always go to 4.5. So it's pretty nice, and it's fun to play around with these strokes and see how things actually work. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna get some practice skin ready. We are gonna use this with cartridges only because that's what I'm actually using from a day-to-day base, and I'm gonna pair it up with a wireless grip just so we get to be able to work wireless, because that's pretty much the way to go at the moment. So let's head over to the practice skin and then let's see how she runs. So right here we got the machine paired up with the cartridge grip. It's still at 5 millimeters of stroke, and this is 5 volts. Now it does vibrate just a little bit more than your average pen, but I have to say for a 5 millimeter stroke This is actually not too bad at all. You can see it's running very smooth. And it's hitting pretty hard, especially on just 5 volts. I think for lining we need a little bit more. Only 5.6, something like that. This will probably do a lot of good line work. And then going down 4 is nice for like some shading, pepper shading, maybe 4.5 for some smoother shading. Yeah. But this is of course unloaded, there's no cartridge in yet, so we might have to change the voltage up just a little bit. We're just gonna do a couple of lines. This is the 5mm stroke. I will write that down as well. We're gonna use a couple of cartridges. I have a 3-round liner, a 7-round liner, and a 14-round shader, just to do that really bold line work with. I just want to see how that works on the 5mm stroke. We got a 15 Magnum and a 9 Magnum to do some of the shading and packing. Yeah, and we're just gonna see how that actually plays out. So I'm gonna start with the smallest liner. Just double check. Yeah, this is a 3-round liner. And right now we're at 6 volts. We're gonna dip in a bit of black. Let's do a couple of lines here. So this is do it like that. This is 5mm. Might be able to get a little bit more voltage. 5.4 or 6.4, sorry. Let's go over to the 7-round liner. I'll draw a couple of lines just underneath. Let's do one more right down the middle here. So definitely some really nice line work at the 5mm stroke. Now let's see how that 14-round shader is gonna play out. Okay, so I quickly had to plug in a different wireless grip because for some reason this cartridge didn't want to fit in my Ambition grip, so I got the mass grip on right now. Now this thing isn't as precise with the voltage. So right now it's on 7 volts. Pretty good. It does struggle a lot with the practice skin, but it's more the practice skin than the machine itself, because this practice skin is really hard. It's bouncing all over the place. Working very nice. Let's see if we should maybe increase the voltage a little bit. Right now we're at 8, maybe it helps a bit. Something I wouldn't recommend doing on someone's skin, to increase the voltage on a round shader. Because I actually rather use a very low voltage when it comes to round shaders. Okay, so we are still at 5mm of stroke. I got a 9 Magnum and I'm at 5.6 volts. Now we're just gonna do a bit of shading and a bit of packing. I'm gonna whip shade up and then pack down on the bottom. So here we go. Very strong, very nice whip shading, very nice peppery kind of shading as well. Now on the practice skin it does come out pretty soft, but I mean if you do this on real skin you will get a nice old school pepper shade kind of feel. It still has a lot of power even at a lower voltage. Because we can lower down the voltage even more. We're gonna go to 4. Now this is something if you do like a lot of black work and very soft like or very peppery and dot work kind of stuff, this would absolutely be perfect. See how slow that is? It does get a little bit softer. Still the 9 Magnum. So yeah, it's nice to just play around with the voltage a little bit, see what works for you. I mean, this is 4 volts is very slow, good for peppery and dot work kind of shading. Definitely a lot smoother on 5.5 or 5. Now we're at 5 volts, we're gonna pack just a little bit of solid black, see if it packs pretty nice, which I'm pretty sure it does. Good. Nice solid black. Cool. Very, very solid. Let's quickly move over to a bigger Magnum. Still at 5 volts. I'm gonna increase it just a little bit. 5.5. Very powerful. I do feel it bogging down a little bit more with this big Magnum, but then it does produce a really nice soft kind of shading. But this is very tough practice skin. I think on real skin it'll be a bit more peppery. Let's pack a little bit of black. See if we can see a difference with the small Magnum, then we know. It does seem to be just a little bit lighter to me than what I packed with the 9 Magnum. Let's do one more pass. There we go. Probably just my technique that got a little bit in the way. Very nice, smooth, solid black. Let's actually change the stroke. Now, like I mentioned before, you got that little thing with the dot on it, and we're gonna go to 4. So you just hold that and you twist that top part. You can hear it clicking, and now it's on 4. Can you see that? 4. 6 volts. You can hear a little bit of a difference in the frequency. Of course, we have to adjust our grip a little bit, and immediately you feel that the vibration is a lot less. I think a lot of machines, especially on a very long stroke, will always vibrate a little bit more and are a little bit harsher. Now that it's at a 4mm stroke, you can barely feel it vibrate, which is a good thing. Right now we're using the 4mm stroke. Here we go. Pretty smooth. This is at 6 volts. So far it seems to actually run a little bit smoother than on the 5. Now I do have to say this could be because, let's loosen this up a little bit. I noticed that the armature bar, especially on a 5mm stroke, is going down very far. A little bit more than this, so rather it going backwards a lot more, it's also going forward a lot more, and now it kind of has that perfect stop just when it's parallel. So I feel that may be something that makes a difference for this machine. I could be wrong, but that's why it's probably running a bit more smooth and a little bit more stable. Now we're gonna head over to the 7-round liner. It should be absolutely no problem at a 4mm stroke. Here we go. Very nice. I have a feeling this machine runs a lot smoother on the 4mm stroke than it does on the 5mm stroke. Cool. Now let's see if it can also push a 14 round shader, which I'm pretty sure it can, especially on practice skin. But 4mm stroke is pretty good for packing and lining and stuff like that. So I'm not too worried about it. It is at 7 volts. Let's have a look. Now it's struggling a little bit. Let's turn the voltage down a little bit. So I lowered the voltage a little bit, so we're now at 6, and I poked the needle out just a little bit more. There we go. And this is a good example why sometimes it's better to lower your voltage than to go higher on your voltage, because sometimes it's just better to go slower and push just a little bit harder on that needle. And it'll give you a better result than go at a very high voltage and then probably tear up the skin, and it looks like your line is not getting in there, but you're just chewing up the skin basically. So a little free advice for me, or at least that's what works for me. Could be different for you. Okay, now let's go back to the 9 Magnum. We're at 5.5 volts. Gonna do a bit of whip shading. You can hear in the sound it's very different than from when it was at a 5mm stroke. You can see it's saturating the shading. Very, very nice. Now let's back a little bit underneath. Here the machine is bogging down a lot. This is a pretty good thing as well. Could also be because this practice skin is very, very hard. But it does prevent you a little bit. It's like kind of like the same as on a coil machine. It keeps you at the right depth. Of course, if you do all your other things good as well. I do see packing on the 4mm stroke is a lot smoother than on the 5. Now let's go to a bigger Magnum. Definitely feel it's a bit softer, especially with these bigger magnums, but still it produces a very nice whip shade. And I'm pretty sure it does very nice with coloring as well. Yeah, very nice transition. Okay, let's pack a little bit underneath before we move on. Oh yeah. This thing packs like a beast. It seems to pack a lot better on the 4mm stroke. Actually, it seems to perform better on the 4mm stroke than it does on the 5. Now let's quickly hop over to, what should we do? 3 or 3.5? I think I'm gonna go for 3.5. Adjust the stroke again. Here we go. You can definitely feel 3.5mm. Always, it's not my favorite stroke. You can probably see that in my line work. It's very soft, even for 3-round liner. It does produce some lines, but just not really my favorite. You're gonna see how that works for the 7. Now I do think on practice skin this will probably work. Usually from 7, or if I go to like a higher or a bigger needle than a 7-round liner, I usually prefer a longer stroke than 3.5. Now on practice skin this will probably be no problem. Just a little bit slower. Produce good lines though. And that's the thing that's nice with these, because your machine has an armature bar, so the stroke is not like 100% of the impact. It's also the weight of the bar, it's a direct drive. It all feels a little bit different. It's a bit more punchy, and the 3.5 would more be the frequency that the needle hits the skin, so it might run a little bit faster on a 3.5mm stroke and doesn't have as much power. Just for the heck of it, we're gonna use the 14-round shader. Now that's something I wouldn't recommend doing if you're running this on someone's skin, to run a 3.5mm stroke on a 14-round shader, unless when you're shading or packing, but not for line work. You can see I'm already pushing pretty hard, but it's not really getting the line in. I have to move really slow. And then yeah, I might get like a little bit of a nice line. But then again, if you are working with a 14 round shader on a 3.5mm stroke, you could do some pretty nice shading with it. Because then you don't have to pierce that deep to get a solid line. You can see you can do some pretty nice soft shading. So that's just something I wanted to show you. I mean, for line work with a big needle, this is not the right stroke. But to do these kind of things, you know, if you do some shading with a 14 Magnum, I think you could do a little bit of packing with this as well. If you have to color in like small bits, it works pretty good as well. But to do actual solid line work on a big needle like this, not really ideal. But it's fun to play around for things like this. Let's quickly head back for Magnum before I'm starting to bore you guys too much. So this is going to be a 9 Magnum, 5.5. Let's do some shading. And you can see that is a lot smoother in shading. The 4 is a bit harsher, you get like really like that, pretty much that line that gets solid, but the transition is a little less. It probably requires a bit more finesse in your technique. And then this will just be a little bit easier to get like a nice soft and smooth transition in your shading. Now let's see how this packs. It does pack pretty good as well. Now let's just go to the last needle out of the bunch, 15 Magnum. Yeah. There's very nice, soft and smooth shading. Very, very, very nice. Now let's back a little bit with this big boy. And that works pretty good as well. Okay, let's actually clean this bit up a little bit. So it's nice to see those kind of differences when you choose like a different stroke length. I definitely feel like it's running at its best on the 4 and the 3.5, especially 3.5 for shading and the 4mm for lining and packing and stuff like that. I was hoping to get a little bit more out of the 5mm stroke, but I think it's just running, I don't know, not the smoothest, not something I would like to use like whenever I'm lining. I would rather stick to the 4. Maybe the 4.5 would be a little bit better, but just to get a rough idea, this machine is actually running really good for a lot of different things, and you can also definitely feel it once you get off that 5mm stroke. It starts running a lot smoother and it stops vibrating a lot actually. But we're gonna go talk about it a little bit, so we're gonna go back up top and just talk about this machine and what I think about it a little bit more. So that was the review on the OG Produce Terminator. It's a very, very nice small little machine that definitely packs a lot of power. I really enjoyed tattooing with this. Now I did really notice that it runs a lot better on the 4mm stroke than on the 5. It's kind of stupid, I didn't really test any of the strokes in between. I feel like on the 4mm stroke it's a lot smoother because you have less of that like down movement. Because normally if you have like a 5mm stroke, it would be perfect to actually have that stop when it's parallel. But on this machine it does go a little bit like past that. Also on the 3.5mm, but then it's just a little bit. It's not like that big swing. And I think for on the 5mm stroke on this machine, that's a little bit too much. So if I would have to change anything, I would have had it that it goes back a little bit further and then it stops whenever that armature bar is pretty much horizontal. So that's something that's like a small minor thing. So on the 5mm stroke I just didn't like it too much, but then on the other ones it's absolutely amazing. And especially if you like these styles of machine with an armature bar or with a like a sidewinder kind of style machine, and you just miss something like that you miss whenever you use your coil machines. Because truth being told, some of the pen machines, especially for guys and girls that are very used to using their coil machine or used to using a Dan Cuban, these pen machines just feel like they don't do anything. They cannot line in, like that's what you feel like. It doesn't line, it doesn't do what you want it to do. It does do a nice job on shading and packing, but it's just not a good liner. Well, if that's the case, then probably a machine like this is a good option for you, because it is a lot lighter than your coil. It doesn't vibrate as hard as your Dan Cuban or your coil, but it does give that same kind of punch, the same as what I had with the Defender. I think the Defender does vibrate a little bit more than this one, but I'm gonna leave that for another video, because for those that have been following me for quite a bit now, you know that I like to do comparison videos. So I'm pretty sure I am gonna compare this video to the Defender and see how that actually works. Now if you want to see that video, just comment in the comment section down below that you want to see this, just drop comparison or something like that, just so I know that you guys and girls are actually want to see a comparison video about this and about the Defender machine. And then probably after that I also want to see how that actually works if we bring one of these machines, whoever I think is probably the best from these side mounted direct drives, and see how they actually work with something that's like a sidewinder, like the Poseidon sidewinder Dan Cuban fake machine that I have tested a couple I think about a year ago, and see how they actually work next to each other, to do a comparison on those as well. So yeah, if you want to see these videos, make sure you drop comparison in the comment sections. And if you aren't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe, of course, so you don't miss out any of these videos. Now, all in all, I think this machine works absolutely amazing. I know I've used it with cartridges only, but you can actually use these ones with regular needles as well as with a regular power supply, or you can use the ink claw, like the normal battery grip, and put a regular needle in there. That could all work. Other than that, I don't think there's a lot more to say about this machine. I hope you really enjoyed watching this review and you learned something from it. Now, I just want to remind you, I do have a coupon code in the description down below. So if you are interested in buying these machines, make sure you use that coupon code, because you will help the channel out a lot and you get a nice 10% discount in return. Other than that, I just want to wish you all a wonderful day, and I will hopefully see you in the next video.